Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
At this point, Vincent stopped shooting the scene. He then gave Jesse some instructions, saying, "You'll be swept away by Hazel's whip. Julian is worried that you'll get hurt, so he'll save you using a secret technique. After that, he'll spit out a mouthful of blood. Although he doesn't love you now, he still tries to protect you instinctively." Jesse listened to him attentively and looked forward to shooting the next scene. After the scene where Jesse had been swept away, she watched Julian act on the side. Since there wasn't any help he could use, his acting skills were put to test. He had done a great job of portraying how dejected the demon lord felt while exhibiting an unrivaled power. In the end, he fell to his knees and spat blood. Hazel rushed over and supported his weight. "Cut," shouted Vincent, and they were done with this scene. Meanwhile, Hazel wasn't willing to let go of Julian's arm. Noticing Julian's displeasure, his assistant came over and told her to release him as Julian needed to reapply his makeup. There was another shoot at night. The scene was about the young celestial servant, portrayed by Jesse, and Julian heading to an inn. They had to go somewhere else for the scene. To make it easier to shoot the scene at night, they only took off their costumes and kept the wigs on their heads. Julian's assistant helped him tie up his long hair. Clad in a black t-shirt, Julian appeared at ease. Just then, he walked up to Jesse and said, "Let's have a meal together." "Do we have time for that? I ordered some takeout. The food will be here soon." "You bought food for me as well?" Jesse was delighted. "Thanks for treating me so well, Julian. I promised your parents I'd take care of you, after all." Julian came up with an excuse. Still, Jesse was pleased that he was willing to take care of her. Then, they went to a lounge where there was no one else. His assistant came over and put down the takeout that was still warm and fragrant. There were also dessert and fruit. Presently, Hazel was getting some rest in her caravan. She was displeased at the fact that Jesse added an extra scene barely a few days after they started shooting the film, for the scene of her falling with the demon lord hadn't been in the script. She heard that Jesse intentionally tripped over and fell with Julian so that the director would include that scene. "She's really something," Hazel snorted. "You have to be careful since she might surpass you, Hazel. She's been gaining popularity pretty quickly even though she's a new actress. Do you think she can surpass me?" "In her dreams," Hazel refuted dismissively. "Fabian will be on set soon. How lucky is Jessie? Even though it's her first movie, she gets to work with two of the hottest actors." Jealousy was written all over the assistant's face. "I told you to snap some photos. Did you do it? Spread them around. Even if this movie falters, it won't affect me one bit. However, it'll destroy a new actress like her." "I did. Do you want me to send those photos to the media? What are you waiting for? Perhaps Julian's fans will protest and force her out of the film set." "Send them to the media now," Hazel ordered with a dark expression. She was known to be a scheming person in showbiz. The night scene was interesting. The young celestial servant portrayed by Jesse was bewildered and adorable. There was a shot where she would take a peek at the demon lord while he took a bath. They had told everyone else to stay away, so not many people could see Julian's naked upper body. On the other hand, not only could Jesse see his body, but she would also have to act right in front of the bathtub. "I'm sorry, demon lord. It wasn't intentional. Get lost." "All right, I'll leave right away." She was supposed to leave the place, but the moment the demon lord detected the celestial soldier's presence from a distance, he told her to stay in the bathroom and set up a barrier as he was worried that she would be taken away. The young celestial servant obediently stayed in the bathroom, but she was told to help clean up the demon lord's wound on his shoulder. Through the lens, the director could see that Jessie's face was as alluring as that of a celestial being, and her eyes were clear yet puzzled. There was no denying that her beauty could soothe the heart of the beholder. At this moment, the young celestial servant was Jessie, and she was the young celestial servant. She and the character had become one. On the other hand, it was an awkward scene for Julian. He was excited when the young celestial servant applied some medicine to his wound, but he had to appear dispassionate at the same time. Although Julian was a seasoned actor, he still found the scene challenging, especially since Jessie was watching him from the side. Therefore, he was told to reshoot the scene repeatedly, which was unlike him. Soon, Vincent realized it was because Jessie was at the scene, so he told his assistant to ask her to leave the place. After Jessie was gone, Julian successfully wrapped up his part. "Let's call it a day, Vincent. All of us are exhausted." After Julian was done shooting the scene, he asked Vincent to let everyone get off work. "All right. Fabian will be here tomorrow. We still have more than 10 scenes to shoot here." Everyone returned to their room to get some rest. After a tiring day, they were elated that they finally got off work. Jessie returned to her hotel room and took off the wig. Once she was done showering, she directly slumbered off. What she wasn't aware of was that she had forgotten to have the supper that a certain man had prepared for her. Lexi told her about it the next morning, and Jessie regretted falling asleep so soon the night before. "Julian takes good care of you, Jessie. He basically buys you 3 meals a day now, which makes my job easier." After a pause, she continued, "By the way, Fabian is on set now. I saw him earlier. Wow. He's so handsome and tall. What's more, he looks like a considerate guy, just like the immortal Lord in the movie. Oh, I remember now. I have to shoot some scenes with him today." "You can do it, Jessie." The camera would start rolling at 9:30 a.m., and Jessie had already arrived at the scene. Shortly after, Julian and Fabian were seen descending the stairs. They were clad in black and white clothes respectively, looking incredibly charming. An excited Lexi clenched Jessie's sleeve, but the latter had already shifted her attention from Julian to Fabian. Right then, Julian happened to catch her staring at Fabian. He squinted his eyes and felt displeased. Why is she looking at Fabian like that? Likewise, Fabian was also gaping at Jessie. It was their first time meeting each other, so Jessie flashed a smile at him and greeted him from a distance. On the other hand, Fabian smiled and nodded at her, then said to Julian, "Vincent has found the right person. She's the adorable young celestial servant I'd imagined." After a pause, he reiterated, "My young celestial servant." Julian snorted. "She's my wife." Fabian dared to tease Julian not long after coming on set, for they had been friends for more than 10 years. They graduated from the same acting class, and they were some of the closest friends in showbiz that were rarely found. "You must be Jessie. Nice to meet you. I'm Fabian." "Hi." Jessie rose from the chair and greeted him. On the side, Julian set his eyes on Jessie. He was displeased at the fact that he had been ignored. Just then, an assistant came over and informed them that they had to start working soon. They needed to continue shooting the scene they had left off the day before. Julian was seated in the bathtub while half naked, and Jessie was just beside him. As the camera started rolling, the young celestial servant appeared elated when she heard the celestial soldiers outside announcing that the war god had arrived. "The war god is here! The war god is here! Let me go. I don't want to stay here with you. I want to meet the war god," Jessie said to the man in the bathtub, anxious. However, the man in the bathtub ignored her as he closed his eyes. Therefore, Jessie tried to shatter the barrier he had set up. Although there wasn't actually a physical barrier, she still did a great job and acted well. Someone stood beside her and showed her how she was supposed to cast the secret technique. Jessie was elegant when performing a hand seal. Certainly, a young celestial servant like her could not possibly shatter the demon lord's barrier. She was driven off and proceeded to fall into the bathtub. Jessie was bashful while shooting the entire scene. She directly crouched down and stayed in the same bathtub with Julian. While facing each other, Jessie appeared coy and flustered. Perhaps that was how she felt at the moment. A bathtub in an inn during ancient times wasn't big to begin with, after all. Therefore, it was difficult for Julian since he had long legs. On the other hand, Jessie was in an awkward situation. She had been crouching because she was worried that she might sit on the man's thighs. All right, stay right there. Julian's chest heaved visibly. Beneath the water, Jessie's knees pressed against his abdomen gently. The warm water seemed to be causing his desire to rise within him. His Adam's apple could be seen bobbing through the lens. After they were done with the scene, Jessie was helped out of the bathtub. On the other hand, the man was stiff as it wasn't appropriate for him to get up now. Realizing something, Vincent stifled his laughter and ordered, "All right, all of you, please leave this place first." Jessie changed into a new set of clothes, and a staff member blow-dried her hair. She would be shooting the next scene with the supporting actor, Fabian. As a war god from the mythical world, Fabian came from a prestigious background. On the other hand, Jessie's character lived a tragic life, and her parents were no longer with her in the movie. Since she had lost all of her spirituality, she didn't even have a place in the mythical world. It was the war god who took her in and let her be a young celestial servant in his palace. The young celestial servant was in love with the war god, for he was the only one who would give her warmth. No one was aware that her biggest dream was to marry this war god, who was way out of her league. In the scene, the young celestial servant snuck out of the place when the demon lord wasn't paying attention. Before she could meet the war god, she was mocked and bullied by people from the mythical world. Although she did her best to resist, she was still thrown to the ground. The war god happened to arrive and lent her a hand. At the same time, he taught those people a lesson. Presently, Jessie was looking at Fabian like a fangirl staring at her idol, her eyes brimming with love. Through the lens, she seemed to be truly in love with the man. After changing into new clothes, Julian happened to come over and watched the scene. Through the camera screen, he could see that Jessie was looking at Fabian's profile with her hands pressed against her chest. Admiration was written all over her face. Julian thought that she didn't seem to be acting. He narrowed his eyes and wondered how many actors this woman had fallen in love with. She used to be a body double, so she had the chance to meet a lot of actors. Was she besotted with every actor she had worked with before? Cut. It's perfect. Great job, Jessie. However, you might have to fall to the ground one more time. With that, an actor portraying someone from the mythical world picked her up and threw her against the padding on the floor. Arg! Jessie wailed. Vincent felt that she had to look more miserable, so he said to the actor, "Exert more force when you throw her to the ground." The actor was a burly man. He picked up Jessie like she was a sandbag and forcefully threw her against the padding once more. Jessie started seeing stars. Although she wasn't hurt, she still felt dizzy upon impact. Unable to take it anymore, Julian came over and said, "I think it's good enough." Although Vincent believed there was still room for improvement, he could only give up as Julian had said so. Get ready for the next shot. The next scene was about the war god getting injured by a traitor from the mythical world. As such, the female lead would stay by his side to fight against the traitor. When the war god was in danger, she finally showed signs that she would become a heroine who would save the world in the future. In the scene, Jessie had to hold the injured Fabian close to her. Vincent was giving them instructions at the scene. he taught Jessie how to carry Fabian in her arms and gently wipe the blood off the corner of his mouth with a handkerchief. When they were in danger, she was supposed to hug Fabian wholeheartedly, and his face would almost come into contact with her chest. The director meticulously talked about how the scene should be shot. Jessie sat down on the floor according to the instructions seriously, and Fabian cooperated with her. Let's start. Following Vincent's order, Jessie held Fabian in her arms. Behind them, a middle-aged man in celestial clothes was performing a hand seal with a dark expression. He threatened, "Do you think a young celestial servant like you can save your master? Be prepared to perish with your master, then." "I'm willing to die with my master." Even though Jessie was terrified, she was determined to stay by her master's side. Death wasn't something she was afraid of. "How foolish you are," the actor sneered. Although Jessie had lost all of her spirituality, she could still use some spells, secretly performing a hand seal by waving her hand. The next instant, the actor's face was replaced by horror. He was tangled up in cables, to begin with, and he was forcefully pulled backward. It was as though he had been swept away by an immense force in the scene. Jessie was still holding Fabian in her arms. At this moment, the lens focused on her face. She lifted her head and turned to look at the person from the mythical world who had been cast away. Disbelief was written all over her face. Then, she looked at her hand and fell into a dazed state. "All right, it's great. There's one thing I'd like to point out, Jessie. You have to hold Fabian tighter." Vincent was someone who strived for perfection. However, the moment he finished speaking, Julian, who was watching from the side, suddenly let out a cough. Vincent turned to look at him and realized his intention. "We'll do it again, Vincent." Jessie was completely fine with it. "Easy. I'll just do it again." Fabian felt stiff all over his body. Just as he was ready to get up, Jessie pressed him back down on the floor with a smile. "We have to do it again. Don't go away." Fabian had no choice but to lie back down. With a smile, he asked, "Am I heavy? Do your legs feel numb?" "Yes, they're a little numb now," Jessie replied with a smile. There was a clearing beside them where everyone watched this attractive duo mess around. No one was aware that there were a pair of eyes that were glowering at the duo. His expression was so cold that one could scrape a layer of ice off his face. It wasn't until this moment that he realized the woman had fun with every actor she worked with. How many times does she want to reshoot this scene? Does she love hugging Fabian so much? "It's done, Jessie. Get prepared for the next scene." "It's done?" Jessie put on a smile and patted Fabian. "We've made it. Let's get up." Then, she realized that Fabian was stiff, so she kindly offered to help him up. After staring at them for a while, Vincent turned around and realized Julian was nowhere to be seen. For some reason, he sensitively detected that Julian was jealous by judging from the way the latter behaved. He had worked with Julian in many movies, but it was the first time he discovered that the latter had fallen for the female lead. The next scene involved Jessie, Fabian, and Julian, and it would be shot in a different place. In the scene, the injured war god regained his consciousness and intended to return to the mythical world to recuperate. He wanted to bring the young celestial servant with him, and the demon lord happened to arrive at the place. Both of them were wounded, but they still fought against each other for the young celestial servant's sake. It was when Jessie returned to the lounge to get some water that she saw the boxes of desserts and fruits on the table. "Who sent these here?" "The crew members sent them here." "You must be starving, Jessie. Have a taste." Jessie's concentration was on the scene, so she didn't pay attention to where Julian was heading. "Where's Julian?" she asked curiously, realizing his absence. "He was here a few moments ago, but I'm not sure where he is now. I suppose he's getting some rest in the caravan." Jessie picked up a box of cherries and rose from the chair. I'll bring him some cherries. Following that, she headed to the parking lot and saw the tent beside the caravan. Julian's assistants were having a chat and playing games on their phones. Is Julian in? Jessie asked inquisitively. One of the assistants, Bethany, got up and replied with a smile, yes, he's getting some rest. I have a box of fruits with me. Can you pass it to him? The temperature inside is probably lower, Jessie. Why don't you get in and unwind a little? The next scene will be 30 minutes away. Jessie recalled that Julian's caravan was indeed much cooler than the lounge, where there were only fans to cool her off. Hence, she dipped her head. All right, I'll get some rest inside. After opening the door, Jessie lifted her hefty hem and got into the car. At this moment, she was still clad in period costumes, so she looked like a young woman who had traveled through time. It was aesthetically pleasing. Meanwhile, Julian was also swathed in historical costumes as he was languidly seated on a chair with his eyes closed. With his tall build wrapped in black clothes, he truly looked like a powerful monarch from ancient times. Jessie observed his face and couldn't help but think that this man was still deathly attractive even when he was asleep. What are you doing here? Although the man never opened his eyes, he knew she was there. I've brought you some fruits. Do you want some? Jessie asked with a smile as she held out the fruits. No, the man turned her down with his eyes still closed. Are you tired? Can I get some rest in your car? Jessie batted her eyes. I'd like to be alone. The man spoke in a dispassionate voice and still never bothered to open his eyes. Jessie was a tactful person, so she never pushed her luck upon hearing that. She put on a smile and replied, all right, I'll stop bothering you. I'll ask Fabian whether I can get some rest in his car. After she finished speaking, she put down the fruits and intended to leave. Just as she was about to get out of the car, the man was heard asking in a muffled voice, do you love spending time with him so much? Jessie turned around in shock, only to see Julian sitting up straight and glowering at her. Faced with the man's wrath, Jessie tensed up. Is he furious? But I don't think I've offended him in any way. She didn't think she had infuriated him as she had been focused on playing her role during the shoot. Are you mad because I've disturbed your rest? Don't worry. I'll get out of the car now. See you. Jessie decided to leave the vehicle as she spoke. Wait a minute, the man ordered. Jessie turned around again, only to see the man looking at the seat beside him. Just get some rest here. Certainly, Jessie wouldn't dare to do so in his car, for the man was too temperamental, and she felt pressured. Forget it. I'll go somewhere else. Jessie just wanted to get out of there as quickly as she could because she was worried that she would crack under pressure. However, the man behind her demanded in an authoritative voice, stand there. Jessie was annoyed, for the man had chased her away just moments ago, but here he made her stay. What on earth does he want? Just then, her phone started ringing. She fished out the device and took a glance before saying, Lexi is looking for me. See you. Then, she dashed out of the car, after which the man behind her squinted as fury rose within him. 30 minutes later, they arrived at a forest for the next scene, and cables were soon set up. When Julian arrived, Jessie and Fabian were already running through a rehearsal. They were standing face to face, appearing to enjoy each other's presence. You're my young celestial servant. You can't go anywhere else other than staying by my side. Fabian shouted. Don't worry, master. I won't go anywhere else. I'll always be by your side, Jessie read out her lines. The moment Fabian saw Julian, he waved his hand at him. Come over, Julian. Let's have a run-through. Jessie also turned to look at Julian, who replied impassively, there's no need for that. Seeing that the three main actors were present, Vincent walked over and said, "All right, you'll go to your designated spots now. Jesse, you'll start running from here and go to Fabian's side. Then, Julian will trap you with a secret technique and pull you to him. You have to try to struggle out of his grip. After that, Fabian will save you. You'll be injured and pass out because you're impacted by both forces at the same time." Jessie nodded as she listened to him. Then, they shot the scene where she'd be picking up some firewood. When she heard some noises, she promptly dropped the firewood and dashed toward a house on the mountain. Two forces were already clashing with one another in the yard. One was a demon lord, and the other was the war god. Alioth crushed all forces, giving Atlas, the war god, a hard time. As a young celestial servant, Estelle immediately stood in front of her master when he coughed out a mouthful of blood, leading Alioth to withdraw his energy and command icily, "Come here. I will never leave my master." Jessie recited her line. Meanwhile, an eerie sensation exuded from Julian even though he was basking under the sun, and the surrounding crew sensed it too. It was as though Julian was genuinely pissed and not just acting. Following, Fabian recited his line, commanding as he panted, "You're my celestial servant. You're not allowed to go anywhere but stay by my side. Don't worry, master. I won't leave you." Jessie stared firmly at him while he held her hand. Julian knew they were all just acting, yet he couldn't help narrowing his icy gaze as he looked at how affectionately Jessie was looking at Fabian. "Cut." Vincent cried out in time, believing someone would get super jealous if he let the scene go on. "Julian, we need a panning shot from you. You two can take 5. After Jessie eased her mood, she looked toward Julian as a few cameras panned around him. The malice in his contemptuous gaze was intimidating, looking like it could obliterate the entire world. Julian completed his shots perfectly in no time, and Vincent had them take a break. Then, Lexi rushed to Jessie and handed her a phone. "Jessie, quick, look. Someone leaked your scene and said you forcibly made it dramatic." Jessie checked the clip out and found that it was the time she accidentally fell into Julian's arms. The fans were already infuriated at this point, for what she did was absolutely outrageous to the fans. Darn, how dare a newbie do this to Julian? And she even threw herself at him. Call me a jackass if she's only acting. I swear she's using the chance to molest Julian. What a shameless bitch. The scandal instantly hit the #1 spot on the trending page with the title "Nameless Actress Pisses Public Off with Her Dramatic Acting." Later that night, Vincent had learned of it after calling it a day, and the man was pissed with a capital P. He loathed when the behind-the-scene footage had been leaked out before his drama was even released. Meanwhile, the victim of this scandal, Jessie, was bewildered. In fact, she had a feeling someone was targeting her. At dinner time, she sorted her meal out inside the hotel, for the scandal left her somewhat traumatized, afraid of what else other people would capture without her knowledge. It genuinely overwhelmed her a little when she was condemned before she even had one legit work released publicly. Lexi, on the other hand, had been scrolling through post after post and grew increasingly livid with time. The whole internet had learned of the scandal at this point, as Julian had a massive fanbase and great notability. Now, with her name attached to Julian, Jessie once again became a viral character on the internet. It was also at the same time when a knock came at the door, and Lexi answered it at once. "Young Master Julian, what brings you here?" she asked with surprise. "Have you guys had dinner?" Julian asked. "We just did, but Jessie barely ate any because she's feeling pretty down in the dumps." Meanwhile, Jessie instantly pulled herself together as she listened to the conversation at the door. Being a shrewd one, Lexi said to Julian, "Young Master Julian, can you please look after Jessie for a while? I need to get something and can only come back more than an hour later." With that, she grabbed her phone and headed out, not caring if Julian agreed to her request or not. Jessie, of course, knew the girl was deliberately making space for them to spend time together. Just as she blushed, Julian entered her room. He was dressed in casual wear right then, and his crisp eyes, tall nose, and perfectly shaped lips made him look like a fairy tale prince under the lights. Jessie looked up at him and spoke up first. "Sorry I ruined your rep." "And what wrong do you have?" "The ones at fault are those ill-intentioned." Julian corrected her, then sat down across from her. Seeing that she was dejected, he tried to comfort her. "Don't worry about it. The company will sort it out. It won't damage your reputation." "Did a crew leak it?" "I know people can make money out of them," Jessie asked, curious. "Cooper's looking into it." "No matter who it is, they won't be spared," declared Julian as a hint of rage flashed across his eyes. "This guy is targeting Jessie's reputation." "Lexi said you barely ate anything," he mentioned with concern. "She seemed to have lost even more weight since joining the production." "What do you want to eat?" "I'll take you there." "No, we can't be seen together right now. Besides, there have been tons of rumors going on between us in the first place. I'm really worried I'll affect you." "In what sense?" He narrowed his eyes. "Your reputation, of course. What use do I have for that when I can't even protect a friend?" "You're more important to me than my rep," Julian declared gravely, making Jessie speechless with gratitude. "Come on. I'll take you out for food." At that, he extended his hand out to her, wanting to pull her up. Jessie put her hand abashedly on his, and he immediately pulled her up, then just like that, he led her out of her room. A few assistants were chatting in the corridor when they came out, and Jessie reflexively struggled. However, Julian held a tight grip on her hand, not giving her a chance to break free. As soon as they had gone far enough, the assistants began whispering, and a rather loud assistant's voice traveled to the elevator when the doors were closing. "Shut up. They're really seeing each other?" The elevator door closed the next second, and Jessie's head buzzed for a second. "No, people can't think that I'm dating Julian, can they?" Julian, on the other hand, stared at the moving numbers until they arrived at the lobby as though he hadn't heard a word the assistant said. As she worried there would be a crowd outside, she withdrew her hand eventually, instinctively wanting to protect his reputation. It didn't matter if she got bashed, but he couldn't be dragged through the mud. The one that hit her the hardest was a fan criticizing him. What the heck is Julian thinking? What a waste of his good looks. To think he'd fancy a nobody like her. Sometimes, words could be as sharp as a dagger, injuring someone indiscernibly, hurting deeply without ever bleeding. Julian didn't insist either, letting her have her way. That said, he glanced behind his shoulder at the young woman walking behind him with every step he took. If she slowed down, then he would naturally wait for her. The chauffeur was already standing by with the car outside, and Julian let Jessie hop in before going in himself. Meanwhile, Vincent had the assistant director investigate the case, as he simply couldn't allow something like this to happen again. Anyone who slandered his cast would be held legally responsible. Hazel, on the other hand, became apprehensive after seeing the trending page in the afternoon. The scandal escalated far too quickly, and Jessie was bashed for good. Julian's fans were now criticizing Jessie for anything and everything. "What are we going to do, Miss Hazel? I heard the assistant director's investigating this case. What if he finds out it's us?" Hazel's assistant was freaking out. "Stand your ground. As long as they don't know it's us, the whole thing will fizzle out sooner or later." Hazel was still rather collected as she had similar experiences. Sure, they'd investigate the situation, but it would be just an act most of the time, and they'd just warn people from doing something like this again. However, right then, Vincent was bellowing in his room, "What do you mean you can't find anything? pull all the footage from that day out. Young Master Julian personally ordered the investigation. We'll stop all filming until we get to the bottom of this. So, dig into it now. The few members of staff had just been putting on a show at first, and their hearts skipped a beat after hearing Vincent's words. It seemed that they couldn't shrug it off anymore. Nobody dared snub it any longer, and they hurriedly gathered together to fish out all the footage from this behind-the-scenes clip as well as find the possible crew member who had released the recording. Finally, an eagle-eyed young woman watching the footage exclaimed, "Guys, look. She's recording with a phone. It might be her. She's Miss Hazel's assistant. She's probably just recording Miss Hazel. We'll know for sure after we have her come over to Director Cooper's, won't we?" Hazel's assistant happened to have gone out to buy Hazel some fruits, and she was called to a conference room as soon as she arrived at the lobby. "Bailey, were you the one who uploaded the behind-the-scenes clip online?" Vincent and a few higher-ups fixed their gaze on her. "No, it wasn't me." "Really? I've already verified it with the media, and it is you. Come clean, and I can spare you, but if you insist on being obstinate, you can say hi to prison." Bailey's face blanched at once, and the fruits in her hands dropped to the floor. Even her legs had turned to jelly. "I didn't mean to do it. It's Miss Hazel. She made me do it. I'm just following orders." The assistant immediately shifted the blame to Hazel. It wasn't a difficult choice at all between being put behind bars and losing this job. "Why did Hazel ask you to do it?" She said she wanted young Master Julian's fans to condemn Jessie Silverstein, and once her reputation on set is ruined, you might eventually kick her out. "And what good will this bring her?" Vincent turned grim. "Miss Hazel just isn't happy about becoming a supporting actress to a newbie. She said it seriously degrades her status, so she made me do it. I'm just an assistant. How dare I ignore her?" Bailey confessed to it all, even Hazel's malicious thoughts, and Vincent couldn't believe he had picked the wrong person. Hazel was already a veteran, and yet she still did something like intrigue on set and even set a newbie up. "Bring Hazel over," Vincent growled. Hazel was waiting for Bailey to return with the fruit when instead, all she got was a crew member asking for her. "Yes? Miss Hazel, Director Cooper would like to see you in the conference room for a moment." "It's already pretty late. Is it important?" "I'm not sure either." The crew member didn't want to let on just yet. Hazel had no choice but to reluctantly make her way to the conference room. Lo and behold, she found a grim Vincent as soon as she entered, and her heart couldn't help skipping a beat. Then, as though she understood what was going on when she found Bailey sitting aside, she instantly berated the poor assistant. "How dare you slack off, Bailey? I've been waiting for the fruit for ages. I quit, Miss Hazel." Well, Bailey had guts, that was for sure. "I'll pack up and go," she announced after putting the fruits on the table. "What is the meaning of this?" Hazel turned grim at once. "Lestrange, Bailey has confessed to everything. I never thought giving you a chance to join my production would lead you to use such despicable tics to discredit Jessie," Vincent chided. Hazel froze for a few seconds before she pulled out her usual coquetry card. "Director Cooper, there must be some mistake. Bailey had just uploaded it by accident. I already told her not to do it, but who'd have thought she wouldn't listen to me? Oh, come on, I promise I'll lecture her. Don't act dumb with me, Lestrange. Bailey said you instigated her to do it. She even said you're jealous of Jessie because she's a rookie, so you don't want to be a rookie supporting act. That's not what I mean at all, Director Cooper. I'm just here to act. Just pack up and go. You're no longer welcome to join any of my productions." Vincent shooed her away unforgivingly. "I've learned my lesson, Director Cooper. I shouldn't have attacked Jessie. She's a good girl and a dedicated actress. It's on me. Please give me another chance. I've really learned my lesson. Hazel instantly looked piteously at Vincent in hopes that her beauty would soften him. Leave first thing tomorrow morning, Vincent ordered impassively. And you can forget about joining my production. As soon as Vincent left, Hazel immediately grabbed onto Timmy, the assistant director. Timmy, you have to help me out here. I've only made a mistake out of whim. Why can't Director Cooper give me a break? It's not that he doesn't want to, but do you not realize whom you've messed with? Young Master Julian, of all people. And have you no clue who Jessie is to young Master Julian? What do you mean? Hazel asked apprehensively. He led her into showbiz himself. She's his. Whoever dares mess with her is just as good as messing with him. You've shot yourself in the foot this time. Wait, Timmy, are you saying young Master Julian is pursuing Silverstein? At that, Timmy leaned closer to Hazel and whispered, who's to say if she'll become the second young mistress of the Gilmore family? Good luck out there. Hazel's face blanched in response, finally realizing whom she had screwed with. The newbie she had despised so much might possibly be the future second young mistress of the Gilmore family? If Jessie really became the second young mistress of the Gilmore family, then her words would weigh a lot. Not to mention when she'd be banned from the industry instantly if Jessie gave the word. Darn, how did I end up messing with such a powerful character? Hazel stomped in panic. Leaving this production wasn't the worst possible scenario, but her entire career would be ruined because of her stupidity. I have to apologize to her, mused Hazel as she pushed the conference room door open and hurried toward the elevator. She had to get to Jessie quickly. She pressed the doorbell, but no one answered, so she had no choice but to wait at the door. I need to apologize, or I'm done for. Please, oh heavens, save me. She waited and waited, but to her dismay, the first to return was Lexi. Is there something I can do for you, Miss Hazel? Lexi, is Jessie inside? No. She's gone out for dinner and hasn't come back yet. Do you know when she'll be back then? Should be soon. Do you want to come in? All right. I'll wait for her inside. I have something pressing to talk to her about. Right then, Jessie was in the restaurant with Julian, who had received a call saying they had found out who the slanderer was. It's Lestrange. Julian snorted without mercy. Why would she do that? Vincent said she's not happy about the fact that she's playing a supporting role to a newbie, which is you. So, she thought of pulling this scandal to have the fans hate on you, forcing Vincent to eventually replace you. Well, she sure pulled a harsh one. Jessie had gotten a taste of showbiz's darkness at this point. She didn't do a single thing to Hazel at all, and yet the latter would pull such a nasty trick in the shadows. Just then, she got a text from Lexi. Jess, when will you be back? Hazel's waiting for you in our room. At that, Jessie said to Julian, Hazel's waiting in my room now. She probably wants to apologize. Let's go. I'm done eating. Julian nodded and accompanied her back to the hotel and even escorted her to her room. Jessie was seething with fury right then. As amiable as she was, she wouldn't be nice to those who tried to bully her. Jessie. Jessie, you're back. Hazel ran up to Jessie as soon as she entered the room and found Julian right behind the ladder. At that, her smile instantly stiffened. Young Master Julian, you're here too. Lexi, please see our guest out. I've had a long day and would like to rest, Jessie instructed Lexi and pretended as though she didn't see Hazel. Lexi, on the other hand, had learned of Hazel's act from the production group chat. So, she naturally wouldn't give a damn about the A-lister anymore. Please leave, Miss Hazel. Jessie, young Master Julian, I'm sorry. Please give me a chance to apologize." Hazel cried out anxiously. "What goes around comes around," Julian condemned. "Get out." Hazel had garnered a level of fame since entering showbiz, but never had she expected her one wrong move would ruin her career. Her legs were weak when she returned to her room, and she was devastated, unsure how to salvage the mistake. At the same time, she was beside herself with anger at how unlucky she was this time. Nothing happened when she bullied other newbies in the past, but this time, to think the newbie popped out of nowhere was Julian's girl. Hazel started making calls as she sat on the couch, hoping to use whatever connection she could to save herself. But alas, no one in showbiz wanted, and in fact, dared not, help her after learning she had crossed Julian. One should know that the Gilmores controlled half of the showbiz in the country. No other company had the power to go against them. The fact that Louis Gilmore, the CEO of Stardom Corporation, held the industry's best resources aside, Julian's status alone in showbiz was one none dared oppose. Hazel sat dazedly in her room for a long while before ultimately heading to Vincent's room. She decided to ask Vincent to intercede for her no matter what tonight. However, there was nothing Vincent could do to save her either this time. He looked at Hazel, who stood piteously in front of his door, and said, "Just leave the set and don't take up any work for now. Best that you lay low for a while, wait until young Master Julian's no longer pissed." Hazel knew it was all she could do at this point. "Then, if you can, Director Cooper, please put in a good word for me, all right? I don't want to offend young Master Julian. I didn't mean it. You think I dare mention you now? He'll only hate you even more if anybody brings her up. Just pack up and go." With that, the director shut his door. Right now, he had to contact other actresses to replace Hazel to not delay the production. He had a hard time deciding on whom to pick as he flipped through the profile of the actresses who had come for the audition. Just then, his phone rang, and he answered it once after realizing who it was. "Hey, Eva. I'm back, director. Are you still looking for actors? Can you assign me a role? Any role. Now, come on, Eva, how dare I ask a big shot like you to join my production? I'm serious. I'm bored right now. I want to take up a role. I'm good with any character." "Well, I am looking for a supporting actress if you'd like," Vincent revealed. "Yeah, I'm game." "Seriously?" Though Vincent sounded surprised, he was excited about Eva's participation, as it would mean another big name would be added to his production. "Yeah. I'll pack up and head over tomorrow." "Haven't you just returned from Monsent? Are you sure you don't want to take a break?" "Nope." "Hand me a digital copy of the script, will you, Vince?" Vincent was doing somersaults in his head, surprised and joyous at the fact that Eva really wanted to join the production. "Sure, right away." With that, he hung up and hurriedly searched for the document to send to Eva. He let out a deep breath. He had initially wanted Eva to be the female lead for this drama, but she was fully booked at the time, working on a commercial overseas. But now, she had returned and was willing to take up the supporting role. It sure was a good surprise. Later, he went to Julian, who was sitting on the couch with a tablet in his hand, Googling Jessie. He sure was even more proactive than the PR department when it came to protecting Jessie's reputation. If anything, he would have the PR department deal with the media and social media users who defamed Jessie as soon as he learned about it. Vincent immediately sat across from him after the former's assistant invited him in. "Guess what news I come bearing, Julian?" "What is it?" Julian lifted his head and took a gander at the director. "I've found the actress for the supporting role." "Guess who it is?" "Well, I hope it isn't someone evil like Lestrange," commented Julian as he glued his eyes to the tablet.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.